Hi there, my name is Caleb Kahn, and today we're going to be talking about traumatic brain injury. You may be thinking, what is a TBI? What's a traumatic brain injury? According to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, it's an injury to the brain caused by external physical force, resulting in total or partial functional disability or psychosocial impairment, or both, that adversely affects a child's educational performance. So an external physical force is going to be something from without. So we're going to see it could be anything from being hit in the head, to being in a car accident, to falling, to being in any kind of like we ran into something. So these are all external physical forces. And then they're going to have some kind of result where there's going to be a total or partial functional disability or any kind of psychosocial impairment that's adversely affecting a child's performance. Now that said, traumatic brain injuries do range, so when we're describing them, it's going to be really hard to have specific examples because every traumatic brain injury is so unique. Some of them will cause physical disabilities while others will not. Some will be very evident, some will not. But that said, for it to be considered for special education, there needs to be some kind of impairment that's adversely affecting a child's educational performance, and it cannot be congenital, degenerative, or induced by birth trauma. Now that said, what are some of these areas? So imagine a student and they have troubles with cognition, speech and language, memory, abstract thinking, reasoning, communication, judgment, problem solving, sensory, perception, motor ability, psychosocial behavior, physical functions, informational processing, organization, evaluating, and carrying out goal-oriented directions. All of these things are listed according to TBI. This is a lot of information that we have to siphon down and figure out. So does a student struggle with this if they have a TBI? And to what degree? Is it adversely affecting their educational performance? Now, students with TBIs may not have all of these, but needs to at least have one that's adversely affecting his or her educational performance. A couple of facts just to give us a good frame of reference. In 2013, 2.5 million emergency department visits were related to TBIs. Over 200,000 hospitalizations were related to TBIs. 56,000 deaths were related to TBIs, and in 2010, $76.5 billion, either directly or indirectly, were all paid in relation to some kind of TBI costs. So TBIs affect a lot of people inside the United States. Who is more likely to receive a TBI? And that's between birth to 4 and the age range between 15 and 19. Boys are 1.5 times more likely than females to receive a TBI. If you're more curious about how the actual brain damage happens on a scientific level, you could check this video out. One piece of information that I found very fascinating was that brain damage can occur for hours or days after the initial event as the neurons continue to break down. Different studies break TBIs into 3 different categories of characteristics that are presented or are influenced. The 3 different characteristics that I'm going to be describing, I would like to preface by saying these descriptions and these strategies are for individuals that are more likely to end up back in a classroom, even after an extended period of time. However, I do want to remind you that there are a lot of severe TBIs that will not make it back to the classroom just because they are stuck in constant states of confusion, not being able to tell what time it is, not being able to tell what day it is, locked in constant states of restlessness. And it is just very overwhelming for them, and they may not be able to make it back into a classroom. That said, the 3 different characteristic types that are typically talked about for those who are going to come back to a classroom are going to be cognitive characteristics that may have changed, behavioral characteristics that may have changed, and social characteristics that may have changed. For example, some cognitive characteristics. Suppose you're this student sitting in math class, listening to a story that you have to solve. One day, a farmer brought 250 eggs to market. The farmer sold them for 25 cents each. Then the farmer realized that while selling them, the farmer still had 50 eggs left over, so the farmer decided to have a 2-for-1 sale at 25 cents each. How much did the farmer make at the end of the day? How about you? Can you answer it? Excuse me, can you answer the question? No, remember there was more information than what I had on the board. Were you listening? These kind of situations are described by TBI patients, especially those who have recovered and are still experiencing these type of what they call clouded or fogginess coming over them, and then they come back, they snap to it, and people often are a little bit judgmental because they don't see an injury, they don't see their head wrapped with a bandage, but they're still suffering from their TBI. Now that said, besides that one example, we have a lot of different cognitive changes that could have happened. Some of those changes could involve needing to relearn how to do various actions. So TBIs, people may forget certain facts, but beyond that, they may forget how to do things. Like their brain no longer knows how to walk, or they no longer know how to pick up a pencil to write, and they have to relearn these actions to be able to function. Other things could be difficulty recalling new information or learning new information. This is common. Difficulty processing information, so they may have it but not understand what to do with it. Difficulty maintaining attention for long periods of time. So instead of being able to sit there and focus like other students might be able to, TBI patients might struggle being able to focus. Being easily fatigued, so while other students are able to push through, the student just seems like they're just done, they're out of energy. Difficulty with self-monitoring behaviors, where another student might be able to figure out, oh wait, I'm a little off track, I should probably get a little bit of help from a teacher, or what didn't I understand about that, what can I do? Individuals with TBIs find it very difficult to be able to self-monitor, so they may not even realize that they're off task or that there is a problem. Students may have difficulty setting and maintaining goals. Students also have described having difficulty contributing to conversations, whereas a student without a TBI might be able to listen to a conversation and contribute, whether it's about academics or even about something they care about. Individuals with TBIs have described that for the longest time they're able just to listen, but they're not able to meaningfully contribute or be able to share something to build onto the conversation. So that said, what kind of strategies can we do to effectively help students with these cognitive changes? 1, assist with goal settings. Don't set goals for them unless that's needed at first, but assist them. Help them figure out what kind of goals are necessary and help them reach those goals. Eliminate distractions. Are there too many distractions around the room? Too many posters? Maybe there's a lot of excess noise. Is there clutter on their desk, in their desk? What can we reduce as far as distractions go? Consider using alternative assessments when possible. One example was, instead of writing an essay, if it wasn't about writing an essay itself, but about content, could you have the student with the TBI do a PowerPoint for you and break down the content in a PowerPoint? Is there another way to assess what they're doing? Find technology that can assist them in different ways, whether it's speech to text, text to speech, to be able to help them read or write if they're having difficulty with that, not being able to easily type anymore. Give different outlines to your lectures so that students can follow along and they can see where it's going and review where it's been. Allow breaks for more cognitively demanding work. So if you know it's going to be a lot of work demanding cognitive thinking and processing, just give them some breaks so they can come back to it later. And also break your tasks into smaller chunks. So whether it's, here's this big project, let's break it into, well, let's brainstorm. What are we going to pick? What are we going to do? All right, let's come up with 3 steps on what we need to do. It's like breaking it down, or if you have long instructions, being able to write them down. So that would be helpful. So that said, some behavioral changes might be erratic moods, impulsive decisions, hyperactivity, low frustration tolerance when dealing with changes, poor anger management, inappropriate behavior to the situation, change in personality. One woman said that the children that you had, you need to grieve those children. You love those children, but you lost them. They're not going to wake up and be those children again after the TBI. Now again, this doesn't mean that this is happening to everyone with a TBI. They could just come back with some cognitive changes and have nothing behaviorally different. Or they could come back with behavioral changes, but still have all of their cognitive faculties. And this is going to somehow influence or adversely affect them with their education. That said, more severe cases, it might actually change the personalities of those. So what should you do as an educator with behavioral issues? Use positive reinforcement. Say, hey, I really liked how you did this. I'm really glad that you did it. So reinforce verbally. Use nonverbal cueing, hand signals, to avoid negatively drawing attention to the situation. If you know they're doing something that they shouldn't, don't say, hey, you student, stop doing that, because then all of a sudden everyone's watching them and then we've made it a really big deal. So is there a way you can like walk up and just tap their desk, or can you make eye contact and give them a little hand signal like thumbs up, hey, how are we doing, thumbs up, thumbs down, just to really help cue them back to what they need to. If needed, remove them from the situation. In the instance with someone laughing inappropriately, or whether they have any kind of violent tendencies, it might be necessary to remove them from the situation. Obviously, we would not want to pull students out all the time, but we might need to remove them. Give regular verbal feedback to tell them what you're thinking, eliminate external distractions to help them focus, and explain appropriate responses as needed. So if they did something inappropriate, explain, well, why wasn't that okay? What should they do instead? So we can explain that to students. Picture this. So TBI patient has a lot of friends, and then all of a sudden you have the TBI, and then you're removed. And then you try to come back into a situation, but your friends have kind of moved on. It's kind of hard. Or maybe you're part of a sport, and that sport is the reason that you had a TBI, and when you go back, you're no longer allowed to be in the sport. So you feel isolated, you feel alone. Social changes also do happen to patients who have TBIs. That said, students can have feelings of isolation. They could actually be isolated from the events that they once were a part of. This can create a lack of self-confidence, or even just the TBI and the things that they're going through can cause lack of self-confidence. Some patients with TBI explain that they had feelings of being less of a person because of their TBI. That said, what can we do to help these kind of social effects? 1. Educate their peers on TBIs and how it changes them. There are studies that prove that if students are aware of what a TBI is, they're not going to assume that someone with a TBI, their behavior is because they're lazy or they're a bad person, but they'll attribute it to the TBI, to the situation that they're a part of, including having inclusion in all school things, even if academics are a second priority. So bringing the student back so they can be in the classroom, even if the goal isn't to learn the material, the goal is to have them socially working with other people. Encourage new extracurricular activities to promote connections with peers. So if they're no longer allowed to be in what they were before due to their TBI, help encourage them to connect with other people in other ways. And as needed, encourage them with those alternate methods. So maybe instead of being on a team, being a manager for the team or coming and cheering at games. Looking for some more information? Well, you could check out these two. I found these two helpful as far as helping students get back to the classroom, or even just looking at severe cases of TBIs to really help me understand what different people might end up going through. So all of my pictures were pulled from pexels.com, which is public domain, and you can see them here. And all of my sources can be found in the description below. I'll also keep a modified annotated bibliography available as well, if you're looking just to skim a little bit through them, just to find that information. Remember that you got this. Thank you for listening.